Minutes. This is an audio check for the online folks. And we are going to do this again. Thank you very much for everyone who is logged in online. This is an audio check for the folks who are on the Zoom and the live stream. Thank you very much. We will get started in about 15 minutes.
Good afternoon. This is your Spanish interpreter. I'm just doing a mic check. Can you hear the interpreter?
Good afternoon. This is your second interpreter. We just want to do a mic check and make sure that you can all hear us. Claudia, I'm thinking you might want to put something on the chat. They may have silenced everything, and that's why they can't
Okay.
hear us. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, we can hear you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
And text me if you have. any
Hi,
questions.
Claudia and Alex. I've put you in interpretation channels. Can you just speak and make sure you're in those channels and not in the general room for me?
Take their seats. We're going to begin.
I adore you. I adore you.
All right, everybody, we are going to begin. If everyone could take their seats. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for everyone being here this evening or this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. I want to start with acknowledging how sorry I am for the devastation and the loss that our community has endured. I want to extend my condolences to the families who have lost loved ones and my deepest sympathy to all who are suffering in this incredibly difficult time. You deserve to rebuild your lives with all speed and support. Thanks to Governor Gavin Newsom and his executive order, the county is the lead agency on cleanup and debris removal to ensure quick, coordinated action on your behalf throughout the county. With the rains, Los Angeles County Public Works has been out deploying 15,000 K-rails and 50,000 sandbags to prevent another disaster. We are joined by US EPA and US Army Corps of Engineers who are experienced and committed to your recovery. We are also joined by state partners such as Cal OES, Cal Recycle, and others, all focused on one goal: more people on the ground cleaning up so you can move back into your homes and rebuild your lives. We cannot let government get in the way. In fact, we must clear the way. In addition to debris removal, the county will be the lead agency on public health. So I want to make very clear, debris is dangerous. It is dangerous to you, to your family, and to your neighbors. The full impacts of this debris are still unknown. They are real, and they require collective community action. Please take every precaution and know that it is both illegal and dangerous to clean out your own hazardous waste from your property. The EPA will do this. Starting Tuesday, LA County will have the forms available to move to the next phase of this process with government or a licensed contractor. And we will get into those details today, provided by our Department of Public Works. Based on the concerns that you have raised, the county is bringing more resources, more people, and more tools to work for you. We are streamlining permitting so that if you choose to do debris removal through contractors, you can do so as quickly as possible and in a coordinated fashion. I will fight for you every day, and I know that we are all united in our service to you and to your recovery. I want to thank our local, state, and federal partners, departments, and agencies who are all here with us tonight. Welcome to the 3rd District. You'll hear briefly from all of these representatives, and then we'll head directly into your questions. Our focus today is on the 2 phases of debris removal and what is happening to support you with swift action. Thank you for informing our discussion today, and know that the county is here to support you every step of the way. I'd now like to welcome LA City Mayor Karen Bass.
Thank you, Supervisor Horvath, for your leadership. As I speak with those of you who have lost your homes, the anger, the grief is palpable. The loss is about much more than a structure, than a home. It's about the loss of memories, security, sense of self, and community. But I also know that alongside the pain is resilience, a truly urgent spirit to rebuild homes and communities. And I want you to know that the city is with you in that spirit. My North Star is my commitment to get you back home. We're not waiting. That's right, get you back home. We are not waiting. I'm doing everything in my power with executive orders, waiving planning and permitting fees, establishing a centralized center for permits, everything that we can to clear the way so that you can rebuild. I've used my emergency powers. If you want to rebuild your home as it was, you're not going to get hit with new permitting rules. The county, the governor, and the president are taking executive action too, and I want to thank your council member, Tracy Park, who is fighting for you every single day. She's leading the charge on the city council and on the ground. This meeting today will hopefully clarify about the first critical step to rebuilding, clearing debris and particularly clearing the hazardous materials that are now very, very dangerous. This is under the control of the federal EPA, and we're working with them to go as fast as we can. You heard the president calling for faster federal action, and I agree. And I'm making sure that the city is doing everything we can to help speed federal timelines. Then after EPA clearance, there is a second phase of debris removal, and there's two tracks. You can contract for the debris removal, one track, and we will make that process simple. But property owners will be required to hire a certified specialized contractor so materials are not hurting your neighbors or spreading through the community. The other track is free clearance of debris removed by the Army Corps of Engineers. I was in Palisades yesterday with the leader of that effort, and who I call the professor, Professor Swenson, who is a colonel, but he described that process, and I know he'll continue that today. So we are working lockstep with our county partners and especially Supervisor Horvath. So we will get this done as fast as is humanly possible because we are going to get you back home. So let me now introduce your councilwoman fighting for you every day, Tracy Park.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to take a quick second and acknowledge all of the elected officials who are here today. These folks have been on the ground every single day, and they are coming together across all layers of government to make sure that we have a fast and efficient and safe pathway to get you all home. You guys have heard from me now in a number of meetings. You know what I've been doing on the ground. You know what my vision is for our pathway forward. I know you have a lot of questions, so do I. Why do we have to do so many phases when we already know the entire thing is a toxic mess? Where will the efforts be? When will they begin? Where will they stop? And can we work in between once the clearing gets started? What's going to happen with the trees, the unburned trees? Are there any that can be saved? Are the haul routes going to impact other neighborhoods? And if so, how are we going to mitigate that? So I know you want to hear from the professionals who are going to lead this effort. So I'm not going to take up your time this evening so that we have more time for questions so that you folks can get the answers that you deserve. But no matter what, I'm going to be right here on the ground with you, working across all of the layers of government to make sure that we're getting you folks home as soon as possible.
I'd now like to welcome Congressman Brad Sherman.
For decades, I've been known as Congressman Brad Sherman from Sherman Oaks, but a couple of years ago, they also added the Palisades and all the surrounding communities to my district. Debris removal, I'm gonna talk just a little bit to the EPA, Army Corps, the federal folks that are here. Please think big, think fast. This disaster, according to AccuWeather, is 16 times the property damage of Maui. Let's hire all the contractors we can, and let's move as fast as we can. And unlike other disasters, I'm told that you're planning to do it in phases so that we can finish phase 1 in some area and that area can move directly to phase 2. As to other areas, I've got material on postal issues, passports, property taxes, income taxes, and how to deal with your insurance company at bradsherman.house.gov. With me, here's my chief of staff, Scott Abrams. He's available like 24/7 at 818-501-9200. So if you have an issue with the federal government, you give Scott a call. He works very hard. He solves your problem. And then I, Brad Sherman, take the credit. It's a great system. Now, part of the bad news is basic federal law says if you're in a disaster like this and you have enormous uninsured losses, there's a tax deduction, but as far as aid, and there's loans from the SBA, but as far as actually aid from the federal government, the maximum is usually $86,000 and another 10 from the state. We've got to fight to make sure the federal government does more for those especially who are uninsured and couldn't get insurance. And the first step in that effort is to convince the whole country that this is an enormous disaster that needs an enormous congressional appropriation. My first step on that is to get people to visit and see with their own eyes. I want to thank we got the president out here. Tomorrow, I've got the Appropriations Committee out here. 2 days later, I've got Hakeem Jeffries, the chief Democrat in the House, out here. And everything you can do to let everyone in this country know this is an enormous disaster. Yes, it'll be a dent in the federal budget, but we need the help here. And then finally, I just want to thank the FEMA for doing a great job. I don't think the president's going to abolish the agency. Don't concentrate on that. He said privately afterwards that he did a great job of running FEMA 2017 to 2020. I asked him to do a great job again, but we need FEMA on the ground and not worried about their jobs, worrying about our houses. Thank you. I'm Brad Sherman.
I'd now like to welcome up California Senator Ben Allen.
Good afternoon, everybody. We know what an awful couple of weeks this has been. It's hit me close to home, having so many of my friends having lost their homes. We've been doing much of the same work that's been mentioned, bringing in leadership from Sacramento, made sure that the president of the Senate came twice actually to the district, along with leadership from the Senate and from the state. We had a wonderful town hall meeting with leadership from the Palisades community so that our Senate leadership could hear directly from many of you. And it was an important meeting, and it's, I think, led to some really important things from the state. The $2.5 billion of immediate relief money that's going to help make sure that the cleanup efforts are going to be expedited. That money will be reimbursable by the federal government, but we're going to keep pushing for more. Some member Irwin's going to talk about some money that we got for the local governments to expedite the permitting process. And we're all working right now on a number of proposals to just make things easier for you. Tax relief, for example. We know that most of you have gotten socked in the face financially by what's happened with the fire, and we want to make sure that the government's not compounding the problem through tax policy. And so we're working with the county assessor right now on some major relief for all of you. We're working very closely with our Office of Emergency Services, Cal OES, that's been in place. Thankfully, we have a pretty good protocol in place now for these kinds of cleanups. I mean, it's sad because it reflects the fact that we've had these fires many times before in other parts of the state. Our Senate President Pro Tem represents Santa Rosa and Lake County, and he's gone through this before and has actually written legislation on this topic. And so as a result, we have a lot of infrastructure in place to make this process go as smoothly as it possibly can. And that's why we're going to be talking about today, the debris removal process, the systems that we have in place, the law that we have in place, so that you can get all your questions answered, and we'll know what sort of resources are unique to this challenge, and we can get that money to you and also to help all of our responders here. I actually chair the budget subcommittee that oversees this area of the state budget, and I'm looking forward to working with CAL FIRE and OES and all the folks that are represented here today to ensure they have the resources and the means that they're going to need. Obviously, I think I speak for all of us. Our offices are open, our doors are open, our staff are working around the clock to assist you. If you have any challenges involving the state government, please don't hesitate to call us 310-4 310-414-8190, 310-414-8190. Senator Ben Allen, it's our office. We also have some really diligent folks that are working to help you deal with all the challenges that you're facing right now, which I know are innumerable. And I'm glad you're here. I hope you've had the chance to visit the Disaster Recovery Center as well at the Westside Pavilion, which is a one-stop shop to talk to FEMA, but also to get your driver's license remade, a DMV, or talk to the registrar recorder if you need to get your birth certificate, a birth certificate or marriage certificate replaced. Those kinds of things. That place is filled with every government agency under the sun that can help you walk through and help get you support on whatever challenge you might be facing with regards to the government. So with that, looking forward to the discussion today, looking forward to doing whatever we can do to help our beloved Palisades and Malibu communities that have been suffering so much. And I ask you to stay strong, and we're going to get through this together. Thank you.
Now welcoming up State Assembly Member Jackie Irwin.
Well, first, I want to begin by acknowledging all of you who have suffered the loss of your homes and businesses, places of worship, and your communities as a result of the fires. My heart goes out to each and every one of you as you work to put your lives back together. I've been so impressed with the leadership that I have seen emerging from your community. Larry, with his Palisades Strong sweatshirt, I'm sure you haven't missed him. He's been everywhere. And I really encourage all of you to reach out to each other. I know there's a lot of text message chains going on. Make sure to communicate what is going on in your community and support each other. You are a strong community. Government at every level, as you've heard, is working together at this point to assist in cleanup and rebuilding. Senator Allen mentioned the $2.5 billion that was signed by the governor the other day. I just want to talk for a second about the $4 million that we requested. So often, many of you have experienced building your homes or getting permits for an addition, and we know how slow those things work. So we put $4 million in the budget to give to the local governments, both Malibu City, LA City, and LA County, to make sure that they work as fast as possible so that you can rebuild your homes very quickly. I also want to make sure that all of you have sought out aid and filled out applications for FEMA. I hope that's not a surprise. There is a lot of aid out there. And there are over 270 state chartered banks, credit unions, and mortgage lenders that have already committed to mortgage relief. So if you haven't yet done that, please call your mortgage company and learn more about what they will offer to you. And then I do want to offer one cautionary tip, that there are a lot of predatory land buyers out there, and they are making calls to all of you. They have looked up your names, and they are going to try to lowball you. So please understand that at this moment, our community is very vulnerable, and you really have to think twice about somebody that's offering to purchase your property, or fraudsters that are offering you a deal that sounds too good to be true. If it's too good to be true, it is not true. So please, take a second before you act. Finally, if you have any difficulty finding any services related to the fire, please reach out to my district office, and we will make sure to put you in touch with the right individual or agency. And our number is 805-370-0542. We are here to help, but tonight we are here to listen. So I hope that you find this evening valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Irwin, and thank you to our electeds for being here with us this afternoon. We will now be hearing from LA County Public Works, the Army Corps, the EPA, and LA County Public Health on this next phase of debris removal and recovery. Each of you have received a note card to submit your questions to the staff at the end of the aisle. You will see them, they'll be walking up and down here. If you raise your hand, if you haven't gotten to fill out a note card yet, raise your hand and they will give you a note card with a pen to ask those questions. Once those questions are submitted, we will have a Q&A portion later where we will be reading off those questions to our speakers. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the EPA.
Thank you. I'm Tara Fitzgerald with the US EPA, and thank you for having me here today to discuss Phase 1 operations. FEMA has assigned US EPA to assess, remove, and safely dispose of hazardous materials from all burned areas. Safety is our top priority throughout this process. The work is inherently dangerous and requires trained professionals to completely, safely, and legally remove the materials. Our EPA teams are trained to deal with these hazardous materials and use comprehensive safety equipment. Hazardous materials include many of the common household items that you've seen that you use in your homes, such as paints, cleaning supplies, and automotive oils. They also include things like pesticides and herbicides, and batteries, including both standard and rechargeable types. Propane tanks and other pressurized fuel containers can pose a risk to people returning to their homes and to the workers who will be doing the Phase 2 work. Fire damaged lithium-ion batteries, which require special handling due to safety and fire risks, are also of concern. This removal of the hazardous materials is a mandatory process for community health. If residents or any other members of the public are present on their property while we're arrived to do the work, we'll skip that property and return at a later date in order to ensure everyone's safety including the workers and the public. EPA is working quickly and efficiently while maintaining safety of the workers. We are in the field now conducting assessment, and we expect to begin the hazardous material removal early this week. I just want to point out that we will have additional information available after the session in the form of handouts, which have a hotline number and a website for additional information. So they'll look something like this, and we'll have people available to pass those out. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to welcome up Director Mark Pastrella from LA County Public Works.
Please. I want to make sure I'm at the right meeting. And been so many of them, and unfortunately for the wrong reason, but an absolute pleasure for me to be here as the Director of Los Angeles County Public Works. As the Director of Los Angeles County Works, I have a number of titles that are coming into play here. We are the Los Angeles County Flood Control District, the county surveyor, the county building official. We are also the county's builder, and the county's builder is the portion I want to talk to you about today in our role. But before I do that, I want to, of course, extend all of my deepest condolences for your loss of your homes, and most importantly, the loss of life that has occurred during this event. An absolute tragedy, a tragedy bigger than I have ever seen in my 38-year career as a public servant, as a public works employee. As a young engineer working in the Santa Monica Mountains, I'm very, very familiar with the area. I hike these mountains and define the hydrology of the mountains, and I dealt with all of the constituents through my entire career. I've suffered a lot of fires with you all and been through them, and we recovered a lot. This is the good news. We're unfortunately at Public Works very used to how to recover. We've gotten good at it. We are battle scarred for sure, whether it's delivering water for the Malibu area, or it's like I said, the flood control role where we're actually recovering watersheds, or we're rebuilding homes in the unincorporated area. This event is larger, as I said, than any construction project that I have been taken on in my career, and I've seen a lot of them. I said, we built the county hospitals. We're building Harbor UCLA. We have been involved in the development of dams and reservoirs. We've cleared 500 million yards of debris from sediment from our dams. 19 million yards of debris from our dams at $500 million, a project like that. So we're used to these big projects. I just want to mention that because I want to build trust and let you know that you're in good hands. But of course, the project is so large that we have reached out to the federal government to gain their capacity as well. And I'm proud to be working on this project with our partners from the Corps of Engineers, Colonel Swenson, thank you for being here, and thank you to the federal government and for FEMA for coming in and supporting LA County. I also want to mention the great relationship between the County of Los Angeles and the City of Los Angeles. We have your road persons here. Ted is here from the Bureau of Engineering, and other department heads that have worked with me, the Department of Water Power. We're all committed to working together, ignoring any silo you might be reading about or thinking about or problem you may think bureaucratic. I can tell you that at the department level, there has always been a great working relationship, and it has only gotten tighter because we're all committed to you, the public that we serve. So with that, let me start. I know what you want to hear about is how are we going to move on? Okay, we'll get there. First, it's important that you know how we do work, and that's we are community-based agency. What I mean by that is we don't begin a project until we've actually reached out to community and understand the needs and the desires of the community, what the outcome you're looking for. We look to start there to build trust. As the colonel will say, build at the speed of trust. So we have been, and I have been at a lot of community meetings. And what I prefer to do in these community meetings, frankly, is listen to you. So I'm hoping tonight to achieve, for my purposes, is to listen and to understand and to be informed and to get ideas of how best to take on this project. After all, you know best about your community. You knew where the trees are. You knew where your home is. You knew where the local store is. You knew the names of your neighbors. You know the local dogs. You know where the rivers is. You know about the outlets that we maintain, Rustic Canyon, the parks. You know more about that than I can know. I don't live here. So what I'm looking for is to hear from you tonight and to give you and tell you, and you have my commitment to tell you what I know when I know it, tell you what I know. So this is what I know right now. The debris cleanup effort is federally funded and is going to be executed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. FEMA is the agency that's in charge, but the U.S. Army Engineers is acting as the agent of FEMA. And EPA is here as well as the second federal agency performing what we are currently calling phase 1, or the removal of toxic materials from your property, household hazardous waste, commonly known as. The county's responsibility include verifying property ownership, clearing properties for debris removal, and preparing them for rebuilding. We've developed a robust system for these tasks, drawing on our past experiences. As I said, unfortunately, since 1993, I've been involved in many, many fires in the county and recovering, and we've gotten better. In fact, we've run this program of debris removal with the state of California 4 different times now, beginning with the Woolsey fire. And we're actively running this program in other areas of the county right now. The difference is we're going to run the program with the federal government this time. And so we're working through some of the federal and state and local issues to make sure that the process that we use here, which is federally funded, is the most effective process for you. So we are removing all local obstacles, as Supervisor Horvath said, and the mayor have said, to ensure the Army can act swiftly and efficiently. There was an announcement I'll make about this process. You've been hearing the term right of entry. That is your authorization for the Army Corps of Engineers to enter upon your property. And you can imagine we want to be very careful about who gives us that permission. We want to make sure it's the owner of the property that gives this. So the county will be certifying that you are actually the owner when you call us, when you sign up. And we'll do that through lots of means. It will not be hard for you to prove that. There are some situations where we have tenants, where we have people with split properties, that we may have to add more data from you to confirm that it's actually the property owner is giving permission. This right of entry is the first step to you signing up for the program that is going to be government run, that is free. The program, so you have 2 choices. As the mayor said, you can sign up for the government run program, which will be free. I will be working as the county engineer with the Army Corps of Engineers to implement that project. My role will be to sign you up, verify that you're the owner, and pass you off to the Army Corps of Engineers. Your ability to sign up will begin Tuesday. This Tuesday. The number you can contact to sign up is 844-347-3332. The website that you can go to is recover.lacounty.gov. There will be a link there for private property debris removal program. We are going to make this a simple process. Not trying, we're gonna make it a good process. You will be able to go on, indicate which program you want to be involved in. The government program that is free, or you want to opt out and do the cleanup yourself. If you decide that you in fact want to use your own insurance money, your own money to actually clear the property, we will allow that under one permit from the county. One permit will cover all of it. You will obtain that permit from LA County Public Works, and we will provide you the requirements. Make sense, right? Licensed contractors that understand, have done this work and are certified to do this kind of cleanup will be required to move the material to the same locations, the right dumps, to get rid of it properly so that neighbors aren't hurt. And we'll have to follow all the rules that the Army Corps of Engineers are following to make sure we deliver you a site that's free from the toxic materials that are currently on site and that is ready for the building permit process. One thing I want to mention that has been said over and over, this is not a linear process. You can begin to apply for building permits today. You can go to your local building department. That will be with the City of Los Angeles for you City of Los Angeles residents. For the county residents that are here, it'll be at my offices of Building and Safety in the County of Los Angeles. In the City of Malibu, it'll be in the City of Malibu. That is when you can start that process today. I just want to make that clear. There's one other thing I have to mention. We cannot start this phase 2 process I just been describing until you have cleared the site from the toxics, and the EPA is doing that program. EPA Tara has just been up talking about it. We're not going to just wait for them to complete the entire area. We are going to have them, as they move through the area and they certify lots, we, the county and the Corps of Engineers, specifically the Corps, will be coming in behind them. The other thing that's important about the debris removal process, it is not a first come, first served process. So running to that website and signing up and being the first one, or those really sharp people who have that software to be the first ones on there, you don't need to hack our site, because that is not how this is going to work. What we're going to do is gather everyone, and we're going to encourage as many people to take advantage of this incredible benefit of a free system to clear your lot of that debris. And we're going to take it on like any project, large project like you would. We have to look at the physical nature of the property. We have to look at those haul routes and make sure that the haul routes are set properly. One of the things that may drive this, you can help with, is that captains, neighborhood captains, like this gentleman here, can reach out and encourage the other property owners within their neighborhood to sign up at the same time. Because you can imagine it's much more effective to clear lots when we have a cluster of homes to clear, rather than running all over the Palisades with a big heavy equipment and tearing up the roads on one side or the other. So one of the factors is most definitely, where are these located? Are they co-located? And of course, so this is something for you neighbors to do with each other. I'm giving you something to do. I know about this effort because I, in my personal life, have been affected by wildfires, and you already heard about my work history. When the neighbors get together and work together, these things get done a lot faster. And it's the same thing with the debris removal. If we can work together, put in the ROEs together, permission to enters together, we will then be able to, that'll be one of the factors that will prioritize that. As I mentioned, the other factor is just the terrain or the type of construction that you live in. The slopes, you can imagine, we may have heavy equipment. I'm gonna leave the rest of that talking about that to Colonel, because he's the expert on that and knows about that. But I just wanted to mention that in the ROE process, what you can do, not first come, first serve, but certainly get in and get your name in and get us to verify that you're the owner, so we can clear you off to the Corps, who is sitting hip to hip with me. We're talking 3, 4, 5 times a day right now about getting you started and getting you going. Okay. I want to do less talking here, so I'm going to get off the stand, but I did want to finish up with one thing here. Or making sure that I covered it. And then I guess you'll ask me questions, so I'll go. But I do want to just mention, again, I appreciate the leadership of the federal government, the state government, and most definitely the local government. Our county board of supervisors have been nothing but supportive of the county and me as a leader in the county. Standing me up as the recovery chief for LA County is the honor of my career. And I thank Supervisor Lindsay Horvath and Supervisor Barger for the opportunity to do that. I talked about the debris removal process. Just real quick, it is raining out. For those of you that repopulated, LA County, along with your city departments and the state government, Cal OES, we've installed the system up there that you see with the K-rail, the sandbags, all that. 3 objectives there. Number 1, to protect you, people. Number 2, to protect your property. Yes, your property is valuable. Even if the house is burned down, we don't want to lose those properties, right? So we're looking at a landsliding potential net, and we're trying to protect your properties from desilting, but also from landsliding. So we're working with you to do that. And then we want to protect the environment. And we are working very hard to keep the debris that's on your properties and the toxins from ending up in the creeks and the ocean. Now, I just got a picture from my staff, and I do see that all of you are going to see on the beach, and you're going to see at the outlet at Rustic, you're going to see black ash laden water in there. It's almost nearly impossible to capture every grain of sand up there. But I can tell you we're doing everything we can to protect the waterways and the ocean by placing the system that we put in place. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to the Army Corps of Engineers and to Colonel Swenson. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Oh. Good afternoon. Okay. It's important. I know that you're suffering, but it's important to have hope and optimism in the days and weeks after a disaster, right? You're here together as a community, and that is a really important step to your healing. We are here as an organization to help the county, the state, the federal government lead this community or be partnered with this community and lead the effort to remove the hazardous debris from your private property and get it in the proper waste stream and in a long-term disposal site so that you can have your community back and you can rebuild your lives and your livelihoods here in this beautiful neighborhood. So I'm going to start, I guess I already started. I'm going to start again by saying my name is Colonel Eric Swenson. My day job is I command the St. Paul District of the Army Corps of Engineers. And I've recently been called out to some fires to help the Army Corps of Engineers lead debris removal efforts on behalf of communities that are suffering their worst tragedy, and to bring hope to those communities and ultimately to bring cleared lots so that we can rebuild. The director talked about many things. The program that we run, I'm going to try to teach you. I used to be a calculus teacher. That's why the mayor called me professor. So I'm going to teach you a couple terms, right? You've heard them. PPDR, private property debris removal. Soon I'm going to say PPDR. Actually, soon you're going to say PPDR, and I'm going to say, yeah, I'll tell you exactly where we're at because we're going to be on the same vernacular. Right? We're going to say the same terms, and we're all going to know what those terms mean. Another thing, we talked about the EPA and Tara's role in getting those household hazardous materials, HHM, another acronym, household hazardous materials. We're going to get those off. And when that phase ends, we're going to go to the next phase, which is phase 2 of this, which is getting the visible signs of the fire off your property. And as the director said, for us to start that phase, we need another acronym, ROE, right of entry. And that's the document that you're going to fill out that's going to get to the county, that's going to give me, the federal government, the legal authority to be on your property to remove the rest of the hazardous material that the EPA did not take off in their phase. A couple things about the Corps and about me, right? I move at the speed of trust. You heard the director say that earlier. It's one of my favorite terms. We move at the speed of trust. I'm here today. I was in Malibu for 5 hours with some of you last night. I'm building trust. I want you to trust the Army Corps of Engineers is going to come on and have your best interest. And we're going to do this collaboratively and together in a partnership so that you get your lots cleared. And right now, I know what you're feeling. You've got more questions than answers. I can assure you that this process is not complicated. but it is a bit complex. And you have questions, I have answers, and you're going to hear it straight from me. I'm a transparent leader, and I'm going to tell you the truth. You may not always like what I have to say, but it's coming from the heart. And at the end of the day, we're all going to move forward, and you're going to every day get one step closer to having your debris removed from your property so that you can be back on your land, rebuilding your lives and your livelihoods. We're focused on public safety. And being focused on public safety, we have to balance many competing interests. I know that your number one interest is to be first, to have your property cleared first. We have a lot of other interests in there. I have to balance the public interest of other residents who have reoccupied their home and would also like to use the same roads. And then I have emergency first responders who have to be ready to go back up those roads in the event that we have another serious incident. And so I have to manage that, and I will work closely with all the county agencies and the state agencies to ensure that the roads remain open, that they are safe for you and your children, who are also in some ways repopulating this area. Okay, there's going to be some bumps in the road. I know that. I just don't want you to focus on the bumps. We can't make mountains out of molehills. We will treat those bumps as opportunities, and collaboratively we will work to overcome them, and we will remain focused together with our eyes on the prize, right? The eyes on the prize is that you have a smile on your face, you're holding a building permit, right? And you are ready to start the next phase. And my role and my commitment to you is that we are going to walk shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand with you to get that hazardous material safely off of your property, efficiently off your property, so that all the other agencies out there can ensure that all the other services are restored to your land. So when you have that permit in hand, you can build your dream house again and return to your property. I'm going to stop there. I am honored to be here helping you. I look forward to your questions, and I'm an approachable person. So if you see me out on the streets, I'm happy to talk to you. If you see me at one of these events, I'm happy to answer your questions. Again, you may not like every question. You may not like every answer I give you to your question, right? Because you might not be next. But I will tell it to you straight, and I promise you, we will get you to the top of the list, and we'll get your debris removed, and we'll get you back in your house. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. I'd now like to welcome up LA County Public Health, Dr. Davis.
Good afternoon, almost evening, I guess. How are you all feeling? I would imagine there's a mix. Exhausted, feeling down. Some may be happy, some things are moving forward, at least the fires have really calmed. But in all of this, we are all together, and you all are in different places, and we understand that. And we understand that as the health department. I do want to say, so I'm Dr. Muntu Davis. I'm the health officer for Los Angeles County at the Department of Public Health. And you can imagine you've heard a lot about recovery, and what I want to say is, and even from our elected officials, everything that they're doing is trying to protect your health and safety. We all have different roles in terms of how we play that and what we do in terms of that. And some of the things that you all consider as health and look to the health department for are also done by them, or primarily done by them and other agencies within your city, within our county as well. I do want to say that in general, overall, this was a massive event. And you can imagine that none of us up here were set up to deal with something this large. However, we have our responsibilities, we know what needs to be done, and we're trying to pull together all those resources to make sure all of that gets done in a timely manner and to the level that it needs to be done in terms of trying to protect your health and well-being. Now, many of you have experienced significant loss, and some of you significant disruptions in your life. And we understand that, and we empathize with that, and our thoughts are with you, and our prayers are with you, and we're committed to supporting you during this time. Since the beginning of this event, we have been trying to, as a health department, understand what's happening in terms of risks to public health, understanding what things might be needed to be done in order by you or by others in order to reduce that risk, and provide information and guidance in relationship to that. So it comes out either in social media, in the handouts, FAQs, documents on our website. And we've also been on the ground, and I have staff outside right now who are at the disaster resource centers, at re-entry points when people are going back, in order to let you know about what risk you may run into and what steps to take in order to reduce your risk to exposure to fire debris, ash, smoke, et cetera. And so we'll continue to do that throughout this process. I do want to say that as we started out and started to create these questions and put together guidance documents, I do realize that we have to categorize, and we're working on this in all of our information. You all are in essentially 3 different situations. There are those within the fire impacted area. Some of your properties are damaged, destroyed, and you won't be able to return to them. So there's specific guidance related to you. And we'll reorganize our FAQs and everything else to do it in that way. The second is you're in the fire damaged area, but your property is still standing. And so there's different risks and guidance related to you. And then the other is those next to a fire damage area don't have any other damage, but really were impacted by smoke, ash, et cetera. And so we have guidance specific for you all too. So we're in the process of working through dividing up the guidance so that it's easier for you to find it, at least on our website, in relationship to the risk that you may have and what to do in order to reduce that risk. Now, I will say that we continue to get questions, and every community meeting we go to, we get questions, and if we can't answer them here, we take them back to our department. We work with those with the expertise and knowledge to figure out how to answer those questions in the best way possible. We do have to keep in mind what's the situation. So sometimes you may get an answer, like if you ask me a question now, I'm going to ask you, what's your situation? Where do you find your circumstances? And I'll try to respond in that way. And so we try to do that. And so sometimes the guidance is a little bit slower because we have to recognize we have 3 different groups of people that we're talking to and providing guidance for. But each of those questions that come back, we try to compile all of those, and we're actively adding to that list. There are some questions that we are not going to be able to answer at the moment. And this week, we're actually going to be meeting with state and other partners and expertise to figure out how to answer some of those questions or bring some of the resources that might be needed that we don't have in order to answer the question or to understand what's happening in particular. There are lots of questions related to soil. There's lots of questions related to indoor air quality, et cetera. And some of those things are on our radar in order to answer, in particular, the questions related to soil. I have some general advice related to that, but the questions around testing soil and all of that, I can say that it happened in, I think, the Sonoma County fire. They did do some testing. They tested vegetation. And I will say what they found initially in their findings was generally low concern outside of the fire impacted area. Now, does that mean it's the same here? Maybe not, but possibly it does. And so questions about what do we need to know in terms of soil and how can we do that? Can we get the resources to do that? Those are things that we're grappling with because those are questions that have come our way. And so that's what I mean when I say we're trying to help and support you in this in terms of understanding what the impacts may be and what the risks are related to the current situation. In general, we are giving advice related to both air quality, related to cleanup, related to debris removal, and understand that with a fire, especially one this large, lots of visible hazardous materials. Those must be cleaned up really in the best way possible by folks who have the expertise to do that. And under the executive order from the governor, that has been tasked to EPA to do phase 1 hazardous materials cleanup in terms of visible hazardous materials. And that once that's done, that's where the opt-in, opt-out comes in terms of cleaning up the rest of that debris removal. I do want to say that we are in a very new age in terms of fire and fire damage. We learned this from Lahaina in terms of the fire. Lithium-ion batteries pose another secondary risk. And this is why you want folks with the expertise, EPA, doing that, because they can reignite, they can explode, and they can leave toxic gases, leach toxic gases from those batteries. So we want that stuff cleaned up before we start to get to phase 2 in terms of the rest of the debris removal. And that is to protect public health and safety, not just for your individual property, but for your neighbors and for the surrounding community. So when those things come up, as they continue to do that, more information will be provided. And we will continue to be here as your health department to try to answer questions where we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. We are now going to begin our Q&A portion of the program, and some ground rules before we begin, because we all love some good old-fashioned ground rules. We have asked that everyone in person submit their questions via note cards that you have received when you entered the room, or with staff that are coming around here. I have a lot of them already, and I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot more. I will be asking these questions to the speakers here, to provide you with all meaningful answers. If you have additional questions that you would like to ask, please raise your hand and one of my colleagues will be coming around to provide you with an additional note card to be submitted. We will be rotating questions from in person to those asking questions virtually via Zoom. Finally, we ask that everyone in person remain respectful and seated while this program is taking place. We will be wrapping around this town hall around 5 p.m. today. And now I will start with our first question.
Sophia,
Yeah.
can I just, there's a couple key questions I know everyone's going to be asking. I've been following the chat. One, and some of them are going to be hard to answer, but I think let's just start with the people want to know about timeline as to when they can get back into their homes.
Yeah.
And then people also, another thing that's been floating around a lot is insurance, right? So if, who exactly pays for this removal? If you're billing it to insurance, most people are now underinsured because of the level of catastrophe here. Who then, if that then goes to their cap under insurance, that then harms them on other insurance services. So, Mark, maybe you can speak to both of those questions because I think those are on everybody's minds.
Okay, on the insurance, so this is, if I understand you correct, you're looking for those that are.
First of all, timeline on getting back in, which I know is a hard question to
That's very
answer,
hard,
but people need to hear your best answer on that.
My best answer to that is that there is no individual overall timeline for all of you. Each person's home will have an individual timeline to it. The factors that apply are the time of construction, the materials that are available, the timing of your permits for your home, the availability of contractors, all that will come into it. And what we can control, what we're working on, what the Army Corps of Engineers and I are working on is the timing of debris removal and how you can coordinate that with us so that you get a pad ready to build soon enough. So it's very tough for me to and it would be almost unethical for me to just give you a number so you're back in. I think most of us know that most people don't build a home in their life or construct in their life. I mean, less than 1% of us do that building. So I get the absolute desire to know that. I actually would advise you to talk to professionals, to talk to licensed architects, contractors, engineers about that timeline. They are probably the best ones to answer that question. Supervisor.
We are not determining these are people who have not yet seen their homes. So that anywhere in the county area, people have been able to get back to their property. So this is, I think, a very Palisades specific question. And so if somebody from the city wants to address that.
So the question, Supervisor, is when they can get back to their property?
Yes, there are some people who have not yet seen their properties. I think that's in the Palisades area.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. That's correct. Here's City Fire is with us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Commander Randy Gar. I'm the incident commander for LAPD. I can tell you, I want to get you back so you can see your properties as soon as possible. With the weather event, that's delayed things. If the weather cooperates, tomorrow we'll open the last 2 zones and everybody will be able to return to their property. So let's pray that the weather cooperates, and by noon tomorrow, the hope is everything will be reopened so you can see your homes. We're still doing escorts into the area, but once you get into the area, you're free to go to your home. There's still some hazards on PCH that we're working to clean up. So we're doing escorts through PCH to West Sunset, Palisades Drive to get people back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are people listening online right now, so we'd like to keep all of our questions via the note card, so we make sure everyone's hearing them. I think we also had a question from the senator regarding insurance.
Paying for the removal.
Okay, so paying for private property removal. First, we stated already, the government run program is free to you. We will be asking property owners to turn over that portion of their insurance that is for debris removal. If you look at your insurance policy, you'll see most of them have some amount of money for debris removal. That portion will need to be turned over to county to pay for. It won't pay for the whole thing, but to pay back portion of it. So the federal government is not going to double double, double benefit. So you have a benefit, that benefit will be requested. And that if you choose to do it privately, that benefit would be used by you to do your own cleanup. We have found that it isn't always enough money to actually do the amount of cleanup that you have to do. If you don't have any and you're in the free program, you're still in the free program.
Thank you, Director.
There are two phases. Let me try to break it down for you. I'm a Cliff's Notes person. So two phases. Phase one, done by the EPA, free of charge to everyone. This is the hazardous material. Phase two, you have two options. You can go with the government program, which is led by the Army Corps of Engineers that the county is coordinating. It is free of charge to you. That's the form you have to fill out, the ROE form. If you don't go with that option, which is free of charge to you, you can go with private contractors. There are many reasons why people choose private contractors, but then you are responsible for those costs. That's, you have to, the question was, how much will it cost? It's up to you and your insurance and your private and the private contractor of your choosing. We have no idea what kind of ballpark. It depends on what's in your home.
Both of this engineering.
Excuse me, can we have
There are two phases. As the phase one done by the government, free of charge to you. Phase two, if you go with a private contractor, some insurance covers it, but those are charges that the county and the government does not pay for.
I'd like to, Dr. Davis would like to make some remarks as well on this.
So I can't respond to the insurance question. I have heard, at least in other meetings, just because it hasn't been said here, is that sometimes if your insurance has a debris removal line item, that may have to go to the Army Corps or whoever in terms of helping with that. And so talk with your insurance company about that, but I think there'll be more details that come out in relationship to that. That's what I understood, Mark, and I think that's right in terms of that response. And he'll respond to that as well. But I can't let go of the public health risk. So if you're going back in a fire damaged area and you're going to inspect property, whether it was damaged or not, do wear protective equipment. Wear gloves to protect your hands. You don't want ash and debris to get on your skin. You don't want to breathe it in. Wear a mask, N95 or P100. We have staff outside who can pass those out. I don't know, depending on how reentry happens, if it's too wide, we won't be able to have staff there to give you that advice when you're going in. But try not to disturb the debris and ash too much. You kick up that dust, you could easily breathe that in. I don't recommend taking children. I don't recommend taking pets. Much harder to deal with. Remember, you're walking into areas that haven't had all of the hazardous debris removed and still have fire debris that can still contain some toxic substances. Long sleeves pants, sturdy shoes, no flip-flops. Do those things in order to reduce your risk if you're going into that area, okay? Thank you.
I want to respond to this. The debris removal is very expensive. If you have a really good insurance policy, you might consider doing it yourself. The Cal Recycler said the average cost at the lake fire was $170,000. So free is beginning to sound real good. Yes, free to you because you've been paying taxes. Yes.
The other thing that was mentioned, very important, if you're going to go the Army Corps of Engineer route, the right of entry form that will be available on Tuesday is to make sure that that is done right away.
Thank you. I'd like to move to our next question.
Just to augment what's been said, EPA household hazardous material removal is free and it starts tomorrow. Okay, that's just underway, right? On insurance, FEMA has a very straightforward authority parameter. We simply don't support duplication of benefits, as Mark indicated. So for example, if you have a line item in your insurance policy that is debris removal specific, the county will collect that. It's just a duplication of benefits that we're trying to avoid.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Our next question, because we have a lot of great questions that have been submitted, so I want to make sure that we're getting to those. When will the cleanup end so we can safely start rebuilding? And what will be done to prevent rain damage and mudslides? I'm thinking this is for Public Works and our Army Corps.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the County of Los Angeles, along with the city and Cal Recycle, are making a heavy investment in preserving your properties from debris flows as well as from mud and pollution control. Your flood control district system is fully maintained and operated and ready to go, and that's a year-round thing. So as I said, we are focused on maintaining your properties, the physical property itself. There was a question on timing, I believe, that Colonel can ask.
Yeah, so I get this question a lot on timing. I mean, we are idling and waiting. We are preparing all of our contractors as we speak. We are getting all of our systems in place. We are going to start our phase 1 here in a couple days. Our phase 1 is similar to EPA's, except we're not taking things off the property. We're just identifying hazardous trees, doing a survey so we know what we're going to expect when we get out there and how we can best align our contractors so they can get there with the right equipment and the right tools to most expeditiously and safely remove the debris. Once you fill out your right of entry and it gets returned or gets given to my organization, we will put you in a batch of other ROEs, and we will try to put like neighborhoods together, but we will get a certain number of them and we will award a contract to our contractor, and we will basically set them to work on those properties. They will divide those ROEs, your properties, across numerous crews, and each crew will have what we call a runway. And they'll be up, the next house on the runway will be the next house they get to. And then when that one's done, and anywhere from 2 to 10 days, and I say that because some houses are multi-tiered and have complex structures. Some houses are slab on grade with easy access and wide roads so we can get in and out quickly. Some houses are closer to landfills and some are further. So all of those factors go into how many days it takes. And then when your property is complete, we will complete the paperwork and turn it back over to the county. And as far as we're concerned, the Corps of Engineers is concerned, when we turn that right of entry back to the county, your property has completed our process, the Corps process. And then when that next house is done, that crew will go to the next house on the list. And as we get more rights of entry, we'll just keep populating those runways. And so you'll just keep moving up. Every couple of days, you'll move up closer to the top until your house is up. And just, you're gonna know where you're at on the runway, because a couple of days out, we're gonna call you and tell you that we're ready to come to your house. And then a day before, we're gonna invite you out. If you want to come and observe, you don't have to, but if you want to come and observe from a distance the private property debris removal on your location. So you're going to be part of this process. I told you that in the beginning. We're transparent. We're partners in this, and we want the best outcome for you and the safest and quickest outcome for you.
I need to give one caution to the statement that I made. We are protecting your streets, the infrastructure, and the permit of your lots. If you happen to be, and I know this can be the case in here, if you happen to be on a lot that is threatened by landsliding or the foundation system being, going down slope, we need you to report that, absolutely report that into LA County or to the City of Los Angeles so that we can let you get in and preserve that lot, take immediate action to preserve the lot and stabilize it. There's some retaining walls that have been burned. There's some back slopes that are probably want to come down. You'll see dry ravel happen, which is like, it's not raining and there's slopes falling apart. We absolutely want to allow you and get you in with your private contractors and that, or your insurance company's money, to at least preserve the lot itself. There's a lot of homes in these hillside areas that are built on special foundations, and the Corps and I are committed to making sure that we don't damage those in the cleanup process. But during the time in between that, you want to get up and get an assessment. Get that assessment done by a private engineer or geologist or soils engineer. Have them come up and take a look at that if you find that condition. Make us aware of it so that we can actually expedite the shoring of that property so you don't lose the property. So don't count on, I'm telling you, do not count on the street mitigation we've done or the slope sandbagging we done, because that is not going to, in some cases, be enough to shore those properties up. You're now just heard that repop is coming. The first thing I would do is go and look at the condition of the property to see for what I'm talking about right now. Get a professional to come and look at with you. You can also call our department to have our engineers come and take a look at it. That number at any time around the clock is 1-800-675-4357.
The last, I wanted to ask a clarifying question here because over the last,
We will. Guys,
sorry, the phone number was 800-675-4357. Mark, I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question. Over the last couple of days, folks wanted to get in with contractors to tarp roofs, sandbag driveways and backyards. But if their home was not in a zone that had already been cleared for repopulation, they have not been permitted to do that up to now. Is it the case that once all of the zones are opened, which we're hearing maybe tomorrow, folks will be able to get in there with contractors as early as tomorrow to start shoring up some of those concerns? Did I hear that right?
Yes, Councilman Park, that's exactly what I would do. Your property has been looked at, by the way. We did look at every single property. We identified properties, LA County Flood Control, looked at every property that is in a, what we would have considered a vulnerable location. That would be like a slope behind it burned where it might be debris flow hitting the house, potentially in this rain. We left placards behind for every house that had anything look like it was standing and gave directions about during rain events what you might do. We did not shore your properties. We did, in some places, sandbag to divert it away, but we did not do any shoring of the property. In other words, making it safe from debris, from landsliding. So again, yes, once you get in with the proper PPE and take a look, this is one of the things you want to look for right away is, are there hazards that could cause the slopes to fail? Again, the number 1-800-675-4357. You just mentioned to the operator that you are concerned about debris or mud floor landsliding. We'll coordinate with the City of Los Angeles. This is within the City of Los Angeles jurisdiction, your private properties in the City of Los Angeles. We'll coordinate with your building official and others to get you going and help you with that. But again, it's going to need a professional look if you have that situation.
Cannot go in. So is that going to change? Because we've been trying for a week.
please repeat. Can you repeat the question? And again, we'd like everybody, if they can put their questions on the note cards that are handing out, that would be great. We have people tuning in virtually that aren't able to hear those questions, but.
Get general contractors or to get our remediation contractors in along with residents. And we've been told unless we are in the same car, we cannot go up with them. So we have not, everything he just said is not what has been put into practice.
I think as soon as the zone is cleared.
Microphones, there are 1,000 people watching.
There's 1,000 people watching this right now, so we'd like to hear it. So the question is, I'm going to repeat that, so I appreciate it. The question is, they haven't been able to go up with their contractors. They've all had to be required in the cars as well. What is the current procedure for contractors being led on?
Okay, good question. So as the incident commander, we're in a unified command. What that means is I represent the City of Los Angeles Police Department. We have my counterpart who represents the Sheriff's Department, LA County Fire, LAFD, CAL FIRE. Every morning we get together as incident commanders. We bring up different issues. I will bring this issue tomorrow as a team. I will advocate that we allow contractors based upon what Public Works is saying to enter. And as a team, we'll make that decision, and then we'll be able to push that out through our PIOs to the public and through our checkpoints to make sure that does happen. Just go back on the previous statement I made. Tomorrow, we will put out publicly whether or not it is able to come back. That is dependent on the weather. But I promise you, if the weather cooperates, we will put that out publicly to repopulate those last two zones.
Thank you so much. Next question that we've had here is directed towards EPA Public Works. If we haven't returned to our homes for personal/sentimental items that survived, will those be lost? from the EPA, or if we can have from Public Works, will people be able to come back onto their properties to get those items for phase 1 or for phase 2? Four. We'd like.
Repeat the question.
I'll repeat the question. The question is, if they haven't returned to their homes for personal/sentimental items that have been lost, will they be able to go back onto their property to collect those in phase 1 or phase 2?
There's no reason that you can't go back to your property if phase 1 hasn't occurred. So we are not precluding anyone from returning to their properties if phase 1 hasn't occurred.
Take their property, they are toxic. I went to my home. I work for EPA. I work for the federal government and even state of California. I went over there and tested, and they're all poison. Please do not tell the public to go get their items.
We'd appreciate, I appreciate that the comments and the concern. If we could have FEMA would like to also provide clarification.
Yeah, thank you. I understand the concern, so do we. We have the same concern. During phase 2, we will absolutely, all of our crews, all stakeholders involved will treat personal possessions and valuables, et cetera, with the utmost respect. We will do all we can to return things like that to the property owner.
Let me try to translate a little bit. I'll do Cliff Notes version. So reentry, which is really going back to be able to see your property, has kind of been happening. And so every place is a little bit different. Can you go back even for a limited period of time to look at your property? In all of that, nothing has been written or restricted if you wanted to go through and try to look for personal belongings that you can't do that. So it is a personal choice. You're right, there are risks, which is why I said, if you're going to go back, know that you're walking into this. But some people want to go back and they want to look for personal items and mementos. But nothing that has been said, when you're able to go in, it's not like, as I understand, it's not like people are standing right in front of your property saying you can't touch this property. And so if you were able to go in and get to your property and look, you can look. It's not that they're saying that. They're saying personal items, that's, you. Now they allow, yeah, that's two different
Excuse me?
things. That's two different things.
Excuse me,
So let
if
me-
we could limit the amount of comments that are going from the crowd so that we can make sure our speakers are addressing those questions, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So what you're looking for is re-entry. Once you get in, then you can go search for your property. And so that's the thing to look for. But otherwise, in terms of going to your property, nothing that I've seen has been written that you can't search for personal items and remove those personal items. You're looking for mementos, whatever that may be. Understand that there are risks, but I haven't seen anything that says that you can't look for your personal items once you have re-entry, okay? But that's the thing that you're looking for. Can you re-enter and go inspect your property? Once you get that,
Okay, I understand that there's some questions on the chat. So there's an app that you can all download. It's called Genesis Protect, and it gives the fire zones with the evacuation orders. The only 2 zones, as of right now, that residents are not allowed in is 767 K like King, and 767 Edward. I want to get people back in there. However, the rains have brought some mudslides with it. LEFD right now, as we speak, is clearing some of that mud out of Palisades Drive. What we can't do is have people come in, have mudslides, get stuck, or worse, the mud destroys their house or whatever it may be. So we want to make sure this is safe, that we can get people back in. If the weather cooperates, tomorrow we will put out a public information saying that those last 2 zones will be able to be repopulated. Once that happens, then residents will be able to go in the entire burned area to look at their house and do a lot of these things that you want to do. Get contractors in to see the property, do all these things. Hopefully that was clear.
Thank you so much. Okay, next question that we have here. I have my own site cleaning / demo team. What requirements must they follow? When can they start? I believe this is for Army Corps for phase 2. We have the past next.
On Tuesday, as has been stated several times, you'll have the opportunity to go to our website and opt in or opt out to the government-run program. The opt-out selection is on that form. You'll see it. I'm opting out. I'm going to, in other words, you've decided you're going to remove the materials yourself. The process will be, as I said, a permit will be required from our department to enter and do that cleanup. It will require you to meet all of the standards that the Army Corps of Engineers is meeting in their cleanup. So I'm going to let Colonel talk to you about that. But remember, remind again, we don't start that cleanup until we get the household hazardous materials off the site.
How long will that take? Yeah.
That's an EPA question.
Parcel, it generally takes less than a day to do, but considering the amount of parcels that we're looking at, to fully complete phase 1, we're looking on the order of months. It's unclear I can't give an estimate.
Again, I appreciate the comments and I understand the frustration. We want to make sure we're answering as many questions as we can from the audience. So I'd appreciate if we can keep the comments from the audience at a minimum. Thank you. The next Congressman Sherman, did you want to?
I have a question for the EPA myself, so I figured I'd.
Let's go to the audience.
Okay, we'll do the audience questions first. At some point, part of the audience, being there.
Okay, next question. If my home is still standing, but the rest of the neighborhood isn't, will it be condemned and demolished?
Emphatically, no. No, this is your property. It's private property. Whatever's on it is your property. We don't have right to demolish your home. The right of entry form gives permission to clear the property. And as was said earlier, and I'll let I'll let Eric answer the question about what we do if you want to know what happens when they go there. But just to answer that question directly, if you have a structure there, damaged or not, it is not going to be demolished unless you authorize someone to demolish it. But it's your property, your right to maintain that property.
Yeah, so let me, couple things here. So the private property debris removal program is offered to eligible fire damaged properties. So there's a FEMA eligibility requirement that you have to meet. So if you go back to your property tomorrow or the next day and your property is completely destroyed, and it's a private property, private residence, it's eligible for the program. If you have some ash from a burnt tree on your property, it is not likely to be eligible for the program. If your house is standing, your house won't be eligible, standing and inhabitable. Your house may have smoke damage, but it's not eligible for the private property debris removal program. This is really focused on people's home is uninhabitable because it has been destroyed by the fire. So I'll just briefly talk, and I can answer questions offline later, briefly talk about the process that we use. As was stated earlier, we're here to remove the public health threat from your properties. And so when our crews go into what we call the ash footprint, that is essentially the property where the fire on your property happened, they will be in full personal protective equipment to include respirators, Tyvek suits, booties, right? Because I have to protect my crews from the hazards that are on your property. And those hazards should not be underestimated. If you have a basement, it may or may not be visible. So the first thing we do when we enter your property for the day of clearance is we do what we call a 360 site assessment. So we're going to walk around the perimeter of your property and try to understand any of the hazards that are out there. Additionally, if there's anything in your ROE, your right of entry, that you specifically called out, we want to make sure we know where that's at. Maybe there's a cultural site or something of significance. We want to know where that's at so we can avoid that, or we can hand collect around that spot. Then we're going to assess any hazard trees. Again, we're here for the public health threat, so we don't want a hazard tree to fall and injure one of our crews, or when we leave, fall and injure you as you return to your property. So we will remove trees as hazard trees that have been pre-identified by an arborist as part of our phase 2 debris removal. We will then go on and remove any recyclable materials. So maybe you have some structural I-beams, some structural metal in there, or propane tanks, or something that are inert. We will remove those and put those in a proper waste stream and get those to a recycling center in accordance with Cal Recycle and the county, because we follow all those rules on where we put the waste. Then we will go on and we'll remove the ash and fire debris, right? That's the unfortunate part. That's your burnt belongings. We will with great care remove those, and we will put those in what we call a burrito wrapped truck. So everyone here has probably eaten a burrito. I actually had one for lunch. It's really good. There's good burritos here. A burrito wrap is a plastic wrap liner that goes inside the truck. We then put the debris inside the truck, inside that liner. And then we do the burrito wrap, which means we fold the liner like a burrito so that it's nice and tight. So all of that fire ash is contained within a thick plastic, essentially plastic bag. Then we put the tarp down, that the truck has a tarp. We put the tarp down to hold everything down, and we leave your property with that, and we bring it to an appropriate landfill for long-term storage. Then we will go back and we will remove 6 inches of soil around your property, around the ash footprint. That's for any of those hazards that may have fallen from with gravity to the earth. We want to get rid of all of those. And then there'll be some options for you when you fill out the right of entry regarding foundations. And so we will work through that process as well if that is something that's on the menu of the options that we are going to do for your particular property. So these are individual choices that you'll make, and that'll determine how we handle the foundation. And then we will come back on and do one final inspection so that we make sure we get all of those hazards off of your property. And then we will sign. You're going to have a white sign in the front of your property. It's going to have some check marks on it. And we will roll this out to the public so you understand what that sign looks like. And when you get that last signature on there, we will then turn the paperwork back to the Director of Public Works and his team, and that will relinquish your authority that you gave us to be on your property, and we will not return to your property because we've given up that right of entry. So that is the private property debris removal process from the Corps of Engineers in a nutshell. Again, there are nuances to it. Everyone's lot is unique, and we will take great care to meet you where you're at, to understand, your property, and to do private property debris removal in a respectful and meaningful way, and as quickly and safely as possible.
I would ask all of my colleagues on the panel, they listened to us for an hour before they got to start questions. So if we can make our answers quick to the extent possible so we can get to more questions, I think that would be very helpful to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. We also are going to be extending this for an extra 30 minutes for those that can stay onwards as well. So I know we have a lot of questions. I'd like to move to the next question and then we can proceed forward. This question is directed to the EPA. Where can we view the areas that the EPA does every day so that we can daily see the progress?
It is. So we do have a website that we will show. If you can type in your address, it will show the status, whether phase 1 is complete. And that is epa.gov/California-wildfires. I want to say I also heard last night at the meeting concerns about people who were not tech savvy and could not utilize, say, a website to look at their status. So we do have an old-fashioned hotline, and I can give that out for people if they want to call for their status. It is 1-833-798-7372. And we are staffing DRC. We do have people there to talk and answer additional questions if the people want to talk in person. The number 1. So we will be showing our progress on that website. So we'll have a number of properties that we've done, but specifically, if you want to know about your property, you can also type in your address so that you can see the phase is complete.
Please, can you repeat the website and the phone number? That would be great.
There are some of us in the community that are working right now on putting together a consolidated site that includes all of these issues such as recaps, but we consolidate for tonight into one place. So we can do it. That's okay.
We can make that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you repeat the phone number and the website? That would be great.
Certainly. So it is 1-833-798-7372. And the website is epa.gov/California-wildfires.
Thank you. We've gotten also a lot of questions regarding foundations. And if one of the questions asked, can you explain how you will determine if a foundation is partially good, if they will be removing foundations? We've had a lot of questions regarding foundations on people's properties. Sure, Mark.
So the program that we intend to, the government program, again, we keep referring this to, the opt-in program. On your ROE, you will designate that you are authorizing the Army Corps of Engineers to come in, and Army did a great job of describing the whole process. Your structures have foundations. They have some value or not. You will have to make a determination if that foundation is going to stay in place or not. We will work with you to determine whether your foundation should remain or portions of it should remain based on the type of foundation it is and its value. Let me mention something about foundations in California after fire burns. My experience has been that slab on grade with 18-inch footings typically cannot be justified as a structural foundation post-wildfire. Our building official has reminded me over and over again, after the Woolsey fire, we had a lot of people try to keep their foundations. They did keep them. Their engineers came in, they tried to justify them. It ended up costing them more money to try to justify that foundation. So I would, talk with your engineers, talk with the people looking at it, do that now, make a decision. We will work with you, the Corps of Engineers and the county will work with you about how much of that foundation we take or how little of it we take. But that's something that you're going to have to make a decision in consultation with your professional engineers and with these engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers and myself, before I can tell you how much I'm going to take. You're all good. You're all good. We'll take it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got-
Gentleman asked. The gentleman
Thank you,
asked.
Director.
You can report. If you'd like to repeat it.
The audience question was, will they be removing the foundation as well during this debris removal process? If we will.
If you opt for us to remove your foundation, we will remove it.
I appreciate the comments, but we want to make sure we're putting them on note cards because we're not going to be, the audience out here is not going to be able to hear that.
His question. The next question by the gentleman was whether or not, if he had a foundation, whether or not we remove that. That is going to be a judgment call because the back of that wall, that back wall may be supporting a slope, and we don't want to leave you with an unstable slope. That's an infield decision. Full basements will have the same complication and will require that kind of review.
The question is, can they opt in and out for swimming pools?
We do not remove swimming pools. We will fence the swimming pools in accordance with OSHA standards with a fence to prevent anyone from inadvertently falling in that pool.
Thank you. Our next question regarding to public health and our other agencies as well is, well, first, who is our local health agency in charge? And then will the EPA Army Corps be reporting to them on a daily basis?
Okay.
So County Public Health oversees all of LA County with the exception of Long Beach and Pasadena. They have their own designated health departments and health officers. Otherwise, in terms of everything else, in all other areas, we help to oversee that and work with all of the partners who are working in this as well in terms of the recovery efforts. And what was the second part?
Will they be reporting every day to you as well?
Will EPA be reporting to us?
EPA, Army Corps, the organizations that are doing the debris removal?
Oh, this is a coordinated effort. So we're all working together in terms of our different expertise and what may be needed, what risks may be happening there. So it's not a really reporting structure. It's a coordinated and collaborative effort.
So the Corps of Engineers, my team will monitor air quality for my employees, and we will have both individual monitors and we will have perimeter monitors, and we will have a sensitive site monitor. So we will monitor that air quality, and that is so I can adjust my techniques to absolutely minimize any airborne particulates that are in the air. We are not a public health agency, but we do share our data with public health agencies.
Thank you. The next question is to Army Corps and asking, what do you remove? Chimneys, trees, foundation, soil?
We remove chimneys, we remove hazard trees, so trees that are dead or an arborist believes will die within the next 5 years. Again, that is to take that off your land so that you would not impact your health or ours. We'll take fire ash debris, and based on how you fill out the right of entry form regarding foundations, we may or may not take your foundation. We will not take a structural wall if that, or in consultation with the Director of Public Works, if that will destabilize the lot. We don't want to cause more harm to your neighbors below you. Over.
Let's use the cards to make sure that we're getting through those questions. Thank you. The next question we have here is, what is the penalty for removing our debris ourselves?
There's a process to remove the debris yourselves, and it does require this is good news, it requires one permit from the county to remove that debris yourselves.
Can we get some background on what the requirements are for the contractors to do them themselves?
You heard the general describe, or the colonel describe the requirements. The contractors will be required to follow the same level of effort.
Thank you.
They will have to certify. They will have to certify that it was cleaned and removed at the same level of service as the Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you, Director. Next question, how will water systems be made safe, public, and in-house, and for how long? And how long, I'm assuming that means how long it would take.
Water and power.
As I saw in the chat, there were several questions about the water safety, so let me just read you a response from the DWP. The DWP will inform you when there is adequate water pressure and that tests have not been completed yet to show that the water is safe to drink, and state regulators approve lifting the notice. So also what's important is that you can't treat the water yourself, so boiling, freezing, filtering, or adding chlorine or other disinfectants or letting water stand will not make the water safe. There's a couple of other questions too to clarify. The county is taking the lead on the debris removal. The county and the city are working lockstep together. Those are some other questions that came up in the chat.
One additional, just in terms of water, each of you may have a different water district. And within a fire, there can be a couple things that impact your water, whether it's some contamination of the source by smoke, ash, debris, or other things, or if there's damage to the system. And so each water district is doing their own assessments, testing to the standards that are required for the water to be deemed safe to go into your house. And so follow their direction and instructions in terms of how to use water if you do have water pressure coming to your house. So each space might be a little bit different. Follow your water district's advice.
And to be clear, the water districts, which I do run, the Malibu district, is governed by the state of California, California Department of Public Health, CDPH, and the State Water Board. The orders to don't drink are coming from the state of California, and we're following, all water districts are following the processes to get that clear again. So for instance, Waterworks 29 is following that, as well as I am sure, and I know that City of Water Power is doing the same. So the timing has to do with clearing with the state of California.
Thank you, Director. Question to the EPA, how many houses are you guys working on it currently? And how long to complete the phase 1 of household removal? I believe we touched a little bit already on the timeline for that.
So once again, we're looking at approximately 15,000 residents, not including commercial structures that have been destroyed within the Palisades and Eden fire footprints. We are working as fast as we can, and we're actually ramping up. We've started earlier than we have in any other fire incident because of the enormity of this process, and unfortunately because of our experience. So we are going to be ramping up as quickly as possible to do this work. So I know I'm hearing, people really want this to move forward. I do want to say that, and I think I said it last night, we responded to the Woolsey fire and stayed well ahead of phase 2 operations. We fully intend for that to be the case for this response.
I just have a question on behalf of constituents for the EPA and our federal partners. I know the EPA is going in phase 1 and getting the hazardous household materials out before we can even start phase 2, which is actual fire debris removal. We already know all of it is toxic, all of it, not just the household debris. Why do we have to do this in so many phases? Can someone explain that to folks just so they understand?
I'm happy to address that. First, I'm Mark Wingate with FEMA Region 9. You've been through a lot, so I want to provide some context. This is a partnership. That partnership includes you. I appreciate the opportunity to impart perspective here. Our role is to expedite support, to foster recovery wherever we can. To that end, the goal is to move the ash and debris from a uncontrolled environment to a controlled environment. The best way to approach this is to start with the low-hanging fruit, household hazardous materials and lithium-ion batteries and similar. The Corps of Engineers will come in behind them. Some of the properties will involve asbestos abatement. All of the stuff that the Corps of Engineers does after that has to have a right of entry. So the idea with the EPA's part of this effort is they go in on executive order because it's unsafe, right? So they can get a start on the household hazardous materials. Regarding the concerns about the timeline, we can waive rules and fees. We cannot waive safety. And I'll just leave it at that. But I will stay till the end as long as you want and take questions. Thank you.
We have a question directed towards the EPA. Could you repeat are you able to answer that question?
So the question was, why can't the EPA embed with the Army Corps and do it at the same time? So the purpose of actually splitting the phases is because we move ahead of the Army Corps. So they don't have to wait for us to do the work. We don't all go as a team together and we pull out these materials that go to different waste streams. Our waste streams are hazardous materials. So they're going to go to permitted facilities. They're not going to the same facilities as the ash. So these are specific materials, often liquid, often different types of explosive risk, which we cannot send heavy equipment into the burn area until they're removed. So that's why we do it a phase 1, phase 2. So it's faster to do it where we're going ahead and they're not waiting for us than to pull these materials that put the public and the workers at risk.
Thank you. Next question that we have, directed, I believe, at Public Health. How dangerous is the ash debris? At what concentration? At what And what is the spectrum of PPE measures to protect the workers in the immediate areas of destruction? That's the first question for there.
So you heard a little bit of what they're talking about in terms of phase one, in terms of what they have to wear. Everybody who goes in to do phase one removal is what's called HAZWOPER certified. They assess the situation, they wear the personal protective equipment that they need, which is not going to be the same as what you would do if you're going in to search for personal property. And so that's where the risk is. And so we've tried to give advice in terms of you're going into this risk if phase one hasn't been cleared. Here are the best things that you have available to you and that you're trained to use in order to reduce that risk. So each property is going to be a little bit different. It'll depend on the age of the property, what material's in there, whether there's asbestos containing products, the type of insulation you have, et cetera. All of those things are different. And so every property is going to be a little bit different in terms of what the risk may be in relationship to that. However, the Army Corps and EPA understand those risks and are going in with the protective equipment needed to protect the workers as they do that work in order to clear the hazardous materials and debris.
Thank you. Next question, are there any plant materials that can be used to protect against debris flow and plants that can absorb and neutralize the toxins in the soil?
Vegetation that's still in place works wonderfully for sediment control. It also uptakes phosphates and other pollutants. So if you have something that's surviving, I would leave it in place. I would most definitely not take the root system out of anything, even if it's burned, so that the soil system still has something intact. The soil on your property has been burned, been heated to an extent that the heat can go down even 2 feet into the ground. So you have damaged plants, they still may be useful in erosion control. I would leave them in place for now.
Thank you, Director. Another question from the community is access to sandbags to my property before the next big storm.
We've been, all of fire stations, I know in LA City and LA County have available sandbags. LA County is available for requests for sandbags at the same number I gave earlier, 1-800-675-4357. I want to thank our partners at Cal OES who delivered over 1 million sandbags to the area and helping us get the site set up for this first rain event.
So just let me add real quick on the soil piece. A simple answer is if your property has been destroyed, plants have been destroyed, try to get vegetation on there as soon as possible. It'll help, clear out, as Director Purcell said, in terms of some of the oxidants. Even putting in compost and some coverage will also help, even if plants aren't there just yet. But that's the guidance that we're going to work on in terms of finalizing the answer to that question in terms of advice for you and what to do. But that's just a quick response in order to more directly answer the question.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
I've got a question here.
Can we
Yes,
wait? Can we wait till we do a couple more community questions before we?
2 more.
In Paradise, this is the question directed to EPA. In Paradise, EPA required 1 foot plus depth of soil to be removed from every lot. What will be happening here?
So
Take-
quickly just state that EPA did not require the 1 foot of soil to be removed from every lot. I know that soil was removed from lots, but I think that would be a question for Colonel Swenson.
Where's Steve Sobra, the Chief Recovery Officer?
So let me answer the question about soil. I mentioned it earlier. The state of California has had over a decade of incidents of major fires that have impacted dozens of communities. And out of that research, what the smart experts have found is that after a fire, the fire ash debris generally enters the soil at the surface and maybe goes up to 3 inches. So as I stated earlier, our program comes in and we take under the ash footprint, so where gravity would sort of normally pull the home down, the burning home down, we go outside of that space by about 1 foot or 2, and we take 6 inches of soil from that space to make sure that we get that top 3 inches out. Now, is it an exact science? No, we're using heavy equipment, but our goal is to get 6 inches of topsoil out and no more so that we can remove that hazard. And that also goes to a certified landfill for its long-term resting place. So yeah, not a foot, 6 inches and no more. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel.
Excuse me, a gentleman had asked about our Chief Recovery Officer, Steven Soboroff. So he will be with us coordinating the rebuilding process. And we will set up in the Palisades area a one-stop shop. So you can go into a building, hopefully it's going to be the recreation center, and all the city departments will be there. But Steven will be taking the lead, making sure the private sector is involved and that everything is going smoothly in terms of the rebuilding process. What did you say?
We need a.
I have not ignored any recommendations.
I
Thank you.
appreciate the comments from the audience. We want to stick to the questions here that we have on the note cards to make sure we get through. We are getting.
About Steve Soboroff, where is he? Why is he here? Why is he involved? Why isn't the mayor deferring to the
Steve Soboroff is very much involved. He's not here today, but he is very much involved. We talk all the time. He is playing a key role and is going to continue to do that. That is why I asked him to be the Chief Recovery Officer.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate the information. We appreciate. Thank you. Our next question that we have here, thank you, everyone. For the EPA, does the whole region have to be cleaned in phase 1 before phase 2 starts?
I'll answer it one more time. No.
Thank you. Next question. I'm a homeowner and lost the home in a fire in Pacific Palisades. I also have a contractor. Why can't I do the cleaning myself? I don't want the city to do it and change my insurance.
You can do it yourself. Register as opt-out Tuesday on the ROE program. No.
The question was, can they do phase 1 themselves?
And the answer is there's no opt-out option for phase 1.
Then
needed for the contractor. That is very important.
I appreciate it. The next question regarding, they asked about EPA overview, if there's additional testing that you could expand upon.
Contractors.
So I think the question is there additional testing that we can expand upon EPA overview? So EPA is tasked for this specific response to do the hazardous materials recovery. We are not providing oversight. We are not here in a regulatory capacity. We are here to conduct the hazardous material removal.
Thank you. Next question we have here, will the Army Corps contractors leave structures behind the burn footprint? For example, well, we talked about pools already as well. And are contractors paid to scrape the lot?
So contractors are, we contract with our teammates to follow the procedures of the private property debris removal, which includes, potentially includes the foundation if you opt for that, and the 6 inches of soil around the ash footprint, hazardous trees, any titled property such as burned cars or boats or trailers, and any structural steel, any recyclable metal we can pull off your property as well.
Thank you. Next question, how can?
Excuse me.
Sure.
You have the mic. Yes. It's not the most important question in the world, but people have their mementos up there. And they could go now, but who knows just how safe it is from a toxic perspective. So the first part of the question is, how dangerous is it for people to go up there now? But the more important question is this. Obviously, if you wait till the end of phase 2, your mementos are gone. You're taking 6 inches of, you're taking the foundations, everything. if EPA, if you wait till after phase one, do you have a decent shot that your photo album is still there? Or do you come in there gangbusters and the jewelry box and the mementos? How memento safe is the EPA's phase one work?
So the EPA is only removing hazardous materials. We are confident that we are not going to take a personal memento if there's something that is hazardous, something like maybe has mercury in it that has been damaged, then we would take that damaged item that had mercury in it. But we are not going to take photo albums or anything of that sort. There would be no reason to.
And it's not a destructive process except for taking the hazardous stuff out.
That is
Thanks.
correct.
Only bulk asbestos containing materials comes out of phase one. Remember, well, things obvious that, like a piece of transite or a fire ring or something like that. They only spend a couple hours a piece on each parcel during phase one. Phase two will involve a full asbestos abatement. If they find asbestos, for example, in the concrete, they will do an asbestos abatement before they complete the rest of the mission. Regarding valuables, I've been doing this for 30 years. We have all kinds of examples of both during phase one and phase two, finding valuables and returning those to the rightful owner.
Thank you.
I should add to that, if we do find valuables, we call the police department and report those. So if we find something that is very obviously of value, such as money, we would report that.
Thank you. Next question, how can the owner determine that the slab is safe to remain before debris is cleared for inspection?
Well, the owner should, to make that kind of analysis, you need to hire a structural engineer, civil engineer, or a soil engineer, one of the three, that can take a look at the slab itself. What they would do is take a core sample of the slab and do strength of materials work on it. I mentioned this earlier, it's expensive. It may not be worth it. Most slabs on grade experiencing this kind of heat will be very hard to justify to rebuild on those slabs.
Thank you, Director. Next question, can an elderly resident nominate an agent to enter her house? What documentation is necessary? I believe that's on the repopulation side as well as for any debris removal. Can people do that as well?
We actually had this come up today. We're very reasonable. As long as there's some documentation to give a nexus to the owner that might be elderly, that can't respond, to the individual that wants to get in, we'll let them in. Some type of documentation.
Thank you.
So the question was like what? We're using some common sense stuff. So if you happen to have a utility bill and a letter to the individual that's with him with ID, copy of her IDs on both, something that a reasonable person, being either a National Guard troop or an LAPD officer, can look at and go, hey, this makes sense. So if you have the two driver's licenses on the same document, that's pretty good. Okay, well, as long as it's reasonable, we'll be reasonable.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Next question. How do we reconcile all of the safety warnings we hear today with insurers telling us that there's no coverage once your house is structurally safe? I can repeat that. How do we reconcile all of the safety warnings we hear today with insurers telling us there's no coverage once your house is structurally safe?
So what the insurance companies are telling you about your rights and remedies if your home is structurally safe or not, if you haven't already, make an appointment and meet with the Department of Insurance. Those of you who know me know I don't really like government regulators and bureaucrats a whole lot, But the Department of Insurance is your policy holder advocate. They are there to be a watchdog for you, and they will go through all of your rights and coverage and give you advice on how to interact with your adjusters and your insurance companies so that you can get those questions answered. They're a good resource for that.
Thank you. If streets and sidewalks are damaged by infrastructure repairs, will the city pay for repairs and if sewer lines sewer lines?
Ted Baker's here.
Where's the mic? Oh, there you go.
Hi, everyone. Ted Allen, city engineer with the city of Los Angeles. We're going to be, assessing all the infrastructure. Sidewalks are complicated. I think we'll need to talk through that in the city. And if we can get it covered under fire damage, then I would think for sure we'll do that. But beyond that, we'll need to assess.
And just so you guys know, if you didn't already, we introduced a very comprehensive package of legislation in City Council. I personally authored more than 24 motions that lay the foundation for that long-term recovery, including long-term financing for infrastructure. You guys know this. All the pipes under the ground are a mess. The overhead lines have all come down. There's talk about trying to get the utilities undergrounded. There is a lot of work to do. Yes, yes. One of the things that I wanted to mention to you specifically, in case you didn't catch it, is that I've introduced legislation to create a climate resilience district specific to Pacific Palisades. So right now, as your property taxes are being reassessed and going down pretty low, over time as you rebuild and those come back up, that money will be captured in your climate resilience district for long-term infrastructure for your Palisades community. So instead of it getting sucked into the black hole of bureaucracy, that money is earmarked for you. So we're looking at a lot of different funding strategies for you.
Thank you. Question, and I believe we can talk. Thank you. For the deceased in the fire, who is providing this info to the next of kin? Do we have info from that on Insect Command?
Los Angeles County Coroner's Office.
Thank you. Next question. If we have an active building and safety ADU permit, when will we be able to resume construction in 460-L zone? Rather specific question. We may need a follow-up afterwards on this one on your case specific. But thank you for the question. I think we'll need a follow-up with the city on this one afterwards. So please feel free to come down.
Email my office for that.
Wonderful.
I'll try to help you get an answer.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next question. Will demo individuals remove structural steel wielded to caisson steel, I believe? Apologies if I misread that.
Yeah, so great question. We take great care to make sure that we remove the hazards on your property. So again, if you have a unique foundation, a unique pier, it's not our intent to damage that, especially if we think it may be reusable and it doesn't. And by not removing it, we still complete the purpose, which is to remove the hazards from the property. So like retaining walls, seawalls, we're going to treat those kind of as one-offs and really look at the individual property and the individual circumstance for that. And we will likely, based on the assessment on the ground, just sort of cut it off at the top, remove the steel piece, but leave the pier or the pylon or caisson behind.
Thank you. Another question from the audience. Tracy Park acknowledged the importance of saving urban forest and that survived. It appears that DWP cut down the trees along Park and Rec parking lot that had survived the fire. What is being done to prevent the street trees loss for surviving trees throughout the community?
So I can't speak to the right of way.
It's for the city.
Yeah.
Can you take that one? Do we have street services here?
It's a follow-up.
Okay, we can follow up with that with Tracy Park's office. Thank you.
I don't know specifically why those trees were cut down, but that's a question I've been getting all day, so I don't know.
Thank you. Next question that we have here. How will properties with remaining structures be handled?
That's been asked.
Meaning, when can they get in? The existing homes, people are
This is-
there.
okay.
When will they be able to safely get in their homes? We have a 4-month-old child.
LAPD question, I believe, right? Repopulation?
Feedback, not just access, actually be able to move into the home. What's the projection on that?
Population question, not a degree. So we have to go to the sleep class.
Okay.
Yeah.
If they're red or
Yeah.
We've heard LA County Public Health, so obviously the area, even though your house is still standing, may not be safe for a 4-month-old. So I defer that to Public Health, whether or not you can move back to your house that may not be damaged at all. But right next door, the house is completely gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is a little more complicated because it does require some coordination around phase 1 and phase 2. We know that this is a question and we're working to try to figure out a good answer in terms of some clarity. So I appreciate the question and we'll work with the team to try to figure out how that effort is coordinated and what to recommend in that. As I did say, of course, if phase 1 and phase 2 haven't been cleared, you're walking into an area with more risk. And there are certain things that you probably should do in order to maintain the indoor air quality. But again, we'll come up with some more information related to when and possibly you could be able to move back in terms of that structure that wasn't damaged inside of an area that is surrounded by damage.
You know, it was,
It's structurally safe enough. We can't stop you right now.
Councilmember, do you mind using the mic just so that the
Sure.
audience?
I was
I'm
gonna
not
say,
here.
if the structure has been deemed sound enough by DBS, we can't stop you from going back and living in it now. But you recognize there are major challenges and issues with the utilities. You see what the condition of town is. So
in addition, there's the issue of the water that was mentioned before. So you can't use the water. You can't boil the water. That's not going to make it safe. So even though, as the councilwoman said, can't stop you from going back, but it still is not safe. And it's going to be a while since it's a state decision.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Next question that we have. What is?
In addition, some people want to go back to their homes, but there are also those of us, like myself, I have a standing home. I don't want to bring back to my home because I don't think it's safe. However, my insurance company, has issues with that, right? Like they may not pay if there's a standing structure, and so they need some sort of declaration on it.
So I hear that you have a very specific question. I understand this town hall is specifically about debris removal. So I want to get an answer to your question because I know a lot of people have a lot of specific questions like you're asking, and it's a very valid one. But I need to focus the remaining time specifically on debris removal because that's who's on this panel today. I understand that might be frustrating, and I will stay after to speak with you about it and make sure that you get the answers that you need. So I want to continue focusing on debris removal questions because that is the focus of today. And there will be a fact sheet that is compiled with answers to there are many questions that have been asked multiple times. There will be compiling of information so it is available to you online after this session, and we'll make sure that we're getting you those answers. This will not be the last time we talk about debris removal, and I know that there are a lot of outstanding questions, but I want to make sure we use the remaining 20 minutes to get to as many questions as possible. Will the county, city infrastructure, water, will all of the water and utility infrastructure still be intact after the debris removal, as part of the debris removal?
Much of what we've been doing, the utilities, myself included as a flood control district and the gas company, power and water, We have been doing major assessments above and below ground. There is major damage, as was mentioned earlier, to the public infrastructure. So your specific lot, if this is a question, can I connect right when I get there? That depends. And we are, all of us together, coordinating the restoration of that infrastructure so that you will be served with power, water, and storm drain and sewer very shortly, hopefully. But it's a big project. Not only do the hounds get destroyed, the infrastructure was heavily damaged in your area, extensively damaged.
One question that has been asked several times online, where are we at in terms of stage 1 of the hazardous debris removal? This is a question for the EPA.
So we started our assessments on January 16th, and we are starting the actual removal of materials coming this week.
And the website that you provided will provide the regular updates.
Yes, so we update that daily. So in the morning, you would be able to see the updates from the day before.
Okay. In terms of debris removal, there's a question about where all of the toxic elements of the fires will be gathered. Where will they be transported? How is the material being contained?
Where they're going, the County of Los Angeles, in coordination with Cal Recycle, have identified landfills that are appropriate for the material to be placed, dependent upon which material we're talking about. And that's kind of, yeah, he's gonna talk.
So great question. How are we moving it from the specific community? So the answer to that question is it depends. It depends on the status of the rest of the infrastructure, the Pacific Coast Highway. We are going to work with our partners in the county, Department of Transportation, make sure that we get this debris on the right routes. We are respectful that people have moved back in. So we are working our routes to try to minimize the impact to those who have reoccupied their homes. And we want to make sure that we share the infrastructure, the roads in particular, with all of the other utilities that have to get their work done, so that when all of us are done, we finish at the same time, and we have power, water, sewer, debris are all complete, so that it enables you to take the next step to build your home, rebuild your home, and rebuild your lives and livelihoods here in this community.
Those of you that are going to be using private contractors, they will also be required to use the same haul routes. They will not be able to drive all over your neighborhood. They will be required to use the same haul routes being approved for the Corps of Engineers.
One area in the Palisades is a
The question is, he has a standing house in the middle of the burn zone, and how should he protect that house? So I can't speak. Look, everyone got in a car to come here today, right? They took some personal risk and said, do I want to drive here today? Everything we do in life has some degree of risk. And I'm not a public health agency. So my advice would be to work with the public health agencies, and you got to make an individual risk-based decision on whether you should move back in. In terms of my commitment to you to minimize the hazards of debris removal, is that we remove debris using the wet method. So that means before we start, we put one excavator blade in the ash to remove it. We're going to hose the whole area down to make sure that that ash is wet, so that it doesn't catch any wind and blow in the air. We're going to have perimeter air monitors, individual air monitors, and a sensitive site air monitor based on the prevailing winds, so that we can monitor the air quality for our employees. And then we will share that with public health agencies.
Let me just ask this. As a community, whether or not there's going to be police protection. Can I just say this?
excuse me, sir. We will have your question answered separately, because we have to keep focusing on the cards and get more community answers question that's focused on debris removal.
As a community, let's work together. Here, we get to stay here. I think at this point, we've been great. I read all the threads, talk to everybody. Let's let them go through the cards right now, because we have the benefit of being here. These are people online. So I just ask them to kind of, everybody stay here, work together. They will remain for all our questions.
And Supervisor, can I just respond in terms of law enforcement? Law enforcement is there, LAPD, CHP, and National Guard. And the commitment from the governor is that we will continue to have that support.
I have a question. There are areas within the burn area that are trailer park sites. So they are owned by someone that is different than the people who resided and who owned their trailer, which was located on that property. So how are you addressing multiple ownership issues? And are we treating trailer park areas differently than any other parts as it relates to debris removal?
The trailer park area is governed by the state of California supervisor. So the state of California will be making determinations regarding ownership in those areas.
So will they be treated differently, or they will go through the same ROE process?
And state and local.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I need to look into that specific issue because the property is likely owned by, say, one individual, and then it's subdivided on that to individual people who park their trailers on it, and so we have to work. We have to work with the county and make sure we understand, who has the authority to give us the right to enter that property. We owe you an answer.
Yeah, that's a good number. But
And I just want to add to a couple thoughts to that, because I want to reassure folks who lived at Tahitian Terrace or Palisades Bowl, we are aware of some of the unique challenges there, concerns about potential transfer of ownership of the park itself. As was mentioned, it is governed by state law, but you have my commitment that regardless of what may happen with ownership of the park itself, we intend to see its continued use as a mobile home park. We are already coordinating with the city attorney on the city side to handle some of the unique legal issues. So follow along closely with us, and we'll be pushing out information unique to those mobile home park communities in Palisades when we have a little bit more clarity on it. Feel free to engage with me and my team, because we're following those really close. And thank you, Senator Allen. Yes.
Yeah, well, and to build on that, the Department of Housing, HCD at the state level, sees these kinds of parks as an essential part of our affordable housing strategy as a state, and they will make it very difficult for any other use of that site than for housing. They've made that very clear to me, and we're certainly going to be pushing really hard in that direction.
This question is about tenants and debris removal. If you live in a property where there are multiple units and some tenants have one opinion versus another tenant, and of course, the property is owned by yet another party, how are you navigating who approves how debris is removed and what happens on that site?
the underlining owner would determine the debris removal supervisor.
So the tenants do not have any authority outside of the property owner?
Not in that case, no.
Okay. So we're gonna keep going with the card questions. Can we opt out of the process and then change our minds and get a private cost estimate? If you go
that's interesting.
path and decide you want to go another, can you move back and forth between those choices? Or once you make a choice, are you committed?
Certainly withdrawing a right of entry would put us on hold, supervisor, and they could opt out of the program again. But we really don't want in and out because it causes distress, causes issues. But yes, you can opt in and at some point decide you no longer want to stay in that program. And you just have to notify us that you're opting out of the program.
But once you opt out of the public program, then you're working with your whoever you privately contract with.
That's correct.
Okay. How will properties, oh, we already talked about that. How do we reconcile all of the safety warnings we've heard today with insurers telling us there's no coverage once your house is structurally safe and dealing with the debris that's on site?
Lindsay, one of the questions that's popping up on the site is just follow up on the police presence in the zone as we're letting more people in. Can we get just a little bit more clarity from the LAPD as to what the plan is for a strong police presence as we really open up the zone to a lot of people coming in, just to make sure that there's greater security?
LAPD is not going anywhere. Right now, we're deploying hundreds of officers, including all the partners that the mayor mentioned. We will not leave that area. We will always have a presence, even when the area becomes open at some point to everybody, we'll still have a presence there.
Let me just say that when we do get to the point where we have the centralized center for rebuilding, we can make sure that there is an LAPD presence there, and that will be in the Palisades. Let me also mention, because a number of questions have come up about insurance, and on Thursday, January 30th, our insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, is going to be having a town hall, a virtual town hall. So we'll make sure that everybody gets that information.
Is debris removal only happening within the footprint of the burn area, or will there be debris removal outside of the burn area?
Only within the fire burn area, Supervisor.
So if anyone has debris that or impact from the fire but isn't within the fire perimeter, what options do they have?
Debris that is not qualifying for debris removal, is that what we're asking?
Mhm.
They have the option to remove that debris if they're not qualifying for the program. They have to follow all laws to
So
remove it.
so it's all, they all have to handle it on their own. There's
That's-
no government option to help them with
that's-
that debris removal.
That's correct. If you're not qualifying the program, and you can go through the qualifying process. You can actually apply to be in it, and we'll make a determination of your, so I would apply and see if you qualify for it. The other thing I need to correct, Supervisor, is, or just make sure everybody knows, once you opt out of the program, you cannot opt back in the program.
Okay.
But if next door neighbor fire and then the standing house is standing, are you gonna be responsible if they come to your program? Are you gonna clean up that debris on the houses being standing next to the whole demolished house?
I have a question for the EPA. How many houses do you have that you have to move through for phase one? What is the total area?
So on the order of 15,000, the damage assessments are being completed, and we often find additional damage parcels. So right now we're looking at 15,000, and that would include approximately for residential and commercial. That's a ballpark number, and we're still finalizing it, but that's a good order of magnitude.
And phase one also includes non-household parcels as well, right? It's the broader areas.
Correct. For this response, commercial is included.
Okay. The question is, are the phases, are the different fire locations being treated differently for debris removal?
They're not being treated differently, but we are working concurrently in both. So we started both on the same day for assessments, and we're starting both this week for removal.
These are all questions that have already been asked.
Very difficult to write some of the questions down.
I have a couple questions about older adults who need assistance if they can't go back and access their property when they're permitted to do so. And can we have a different person go on their behalf and also work with them to authorize permission for removal? Okay. These have all been asked and answered. Do we have any new?
Certification wise, in order to be able to qualify to do the opt-out private AQMP certification.
The question is, what specifically are the qualifications if you opt into, if you opt out of the government process and choose a private contractor, what are the specific qualifications?
Yeah, this is a very detailed answer to that. You have to be a licensed contractor. That's easy to understand. Certifications like asbestos removal, lead removal, et cetera. We will have on the website that I mentioned earlier, recover.lacounty.gov on debris removal. We will have the specific certifications required to do the work on your own.
Who is liable if someone gets hurt on your property during the debris removal process? We have amazing residents who ask good questions, sir.
That's a great, I mean, I'm sat through a lot of public meetings. That's the first time I've gotten that question. So, so if it's one of my crew members that gets injured on your property, you have given us the legal right to be there. All of our contractors are bonded and licensed and insured. And, you know, just like you'll hold us harmless, we will hold you, harmless if one of our contractors gets injured on your property.
Probably in the ROA.
Can any California general building contractor do the debris removal?
No, and that goes back to the question asked and answered.
Is there an opt-out deadline?
Classification.
That's it. Starting when?
Is there an opt-out deadline?
60 days post this Tuesday when we open up. So you have 60 days past Tuesday. Someone can look that date up for me and we'll have a deadline date for you.
When,
Fire damage to their.
can we keep going with the cards? Do people with standing homes need to fill out the right of entry forms?
As I said earlier, if you have if you think you may qualify, fill out the right of entry form. We'll check to see if you qualify and we'll get back to you with your qualification for that.
When will tow trucks be allowed into areas to tow cars? This one is specific to Marquez Knolls, but when will tow trucks be allowed in to tow cars as part of the debris removal process?
So we cannot drive the cars. We need tow trucks to tow the cars to the dealerships to get new key fobs programs.
This is for those who are listening, this is for those who do not have key fobs any longer. They need the car towed so they can get a new key fob.
Yes. Once you've been authorized, the evacuation order is lifted and you're repopulated, the streets then become public streets. And this is when you can bring a tow truck in. You won't have to do that once the repopulation has been granted.
If you opt out of if you opt out of government phase 2, part of the debris removal process, will you be deprioritized in phase 1 by the EPA?
No.
When phase 2 is complete, I know that.
The number on the flyer today, they specifically made it clear that I would be deprioritized by the EPA if I opted out of phase 2. So I'm just telling you that so that.
I believe you, sir, and that is no, I know. I believe that was said to you, and I'm sorry that was given to you.
Yeah, the person who asked the question said that he was given a different answer when he called the number. So that's helpful feedback so we can make sure that you're getting clear communication. I know that's incredibly frustrating to get 2 different answers. I know that it was already mentioned earlier that you can begin the planning process with respective planning departments regardless of the debris removal process. That's what this question was. Are there outstanding questions specifically about debris removal process?
We have another 3,000 lots to finish. Can I start building if I have all the building permits? Or do I have to wait for everybody else?
The question is, if your area has gone through both phases of the debris removal process and you're ready to build, but other areas have not gone through the debris removal process, do you have to wait for all debris removal to happen in order for people to build?
When we complete phase 2 of the private property debris removal program, you know, a few days to a few weeks after we get done, depending on how backlogged we are, we will turn that paperwork. There's a bunch of paperwork we have to fill out to show that we completed it. We will complete that paperwork. We will return a copy to FEMA and to the county, and then we are off your property. And then you're in the next phase.
Yeah, respectfully, I don't think it's a question for you. I think it's a question for the city.
So I had said before that we will have a centralized location in the Palisades, a one-stop center where you can come in and get all of your permits. And so when phase 2 is done, then yes, you can.
So I think what folks
Yes.
are looking for here is the answer. If their lot has been cleared and they have your permits and you are ready, can you get started when your lot is clear? That's the
Yes,
answer they're
you
looking for.
can.
Yes.
That's
yes.
an LA City Planning
Yes.
question and answered. Thank you. One more question, and we've gone past our 5:30 allotment, so I'm gonna take this last question, and then we are not leaving the room. We are also compiling the questions that have been asked, so we can get an FAQ online if your question needs to be addressed. And if you haven't gotten your question addressed, come up here and I will make sure that your question gets answered and gets an answer.
Still standing, you have to prioritize the Highlands so that this community can come back together. There are hundreds of homes standing there. Let the people go in there. Tell me that you're going to remove the debris there first. It's up at the hillside.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. The Highlands area is mostly standing is what the person said. And so they want a priority for people, areas where their homes are already standing so people can come back in. I will say for areas that are still standing, there may be utility connection issues and other issues that need to be addressed. I'm hearing your question and we will address it on a going forward basis. Last question.
Will they be started? Yes, on Friday, they told us we had to defer to when you guys say we can do it.
Right, so you would then opt out on Tuesday and you're ready to go. So we have to have a permit system ready on Tuesday. We'll make that as simple as possible. Okay, so my honor to you, when Tuesday comes, there you go. Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much. Phase 1 has to be completed before I issue that permit. Thank you, Mayor, for reminding me.
The applications can start now.
Yes, we're going to use our Epic LA permitting process, if you're familiar with it, in which you can pull that permit. But again, I want to remind you, as reminded by the mayor, phase 1 has to be completed. So we have to be indicators from EPA that they have completed phase 1, and then we will issue that permit to you.
Larry's asked to address.
Quickly, to the community as a community member, I just think it's really important. Anybody going back tomorrow, anybody going back to our community, we're a strong community. Please do use your PPE. Please do use the equipment. This is my little guy, and we were at the hospital about a week ago because we were both coughing. And I've spoken to several of us, our fellow community members, who went up there and used the mask but didn't have them fully fitted and found themselves coughing. I say, so please, we are a strong community, we are bonded. It's incredible how many of us have come together. So please, for our safety and our love of each other, when you go up, use the equipment, please. I know we don't like that whole COVID thing, it was frustrating. You know, you can choose for yourself to do what you want, but please, I'm encouraging you to use that for our safety.
Thank you. Your clearinghouse.
And it has to be an N95. I did double N95, but please take care of ourselves.
Thank you. The clearinghouse website for all information that's been discussed today and going forward that we will populate with your questions and answers is recovery.lacounty.gov, recovery.lacounty.gov. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to answer your questions. We'll continue to do so going forward.
Wow, good.